guys, in this lesson, we're going to talk about the anatomy of the nervous system. So first, I want to make sure that you understand the purpose of the nervous system. This is what helps us coordinate and integrate all of our body functions. So that's everything from moving to breathing to digesting our food. It is all coordinated through these electrochemical signals that send signals from the nervous system out to other parts of the body. Now, there's two main properties that you need to know about the nervous system, and one is irritability. That means it has the ability to respond to some sort of stimulus. Another word for this is excitable or excitability. So basically what that means is we get a stimulus and it starts a signal. And those signals are called action potentials or AP. Now, the second property is conductivity. Conductivity means that it can take that action potential and actually transmit it down the nerve pathways to get where it needs to go. So it actually conducts the signal from one place to another. So let's see what it looks like when the brain actually sends these electrochemical signals. Again, remember they are called action potentials or AP. So first, the nerve is going to get a stimulus and it's going to respond to that stimulus. Now, this could be almost anything. Could be pain, could be a stretching of the stomach, anything. So then it's going to convert that stimulus into an action potential. Again, that's the irritability or excitability property. Then it's going to send that action potential down a certain pathway, depending on what it's trying to accomplish. And when it gets there, it's going to produce an action. So an example might be you touch a hot stove, and so pain becomes the stimulus. The signals will convert to an action potential, travel down a nerve pathway up to the brain. The brain is going to go, holy moly, not okay, send a signal back out to your hand, and it's going to make you move your hand. So that's the action that it produces. So these types of electrochemical signals are actually happening constantly throughout your body, and that's how everything stays coordinated and working right. So before we get into the cellular anatomy, I want to talk about the overall divisions of the nervous system. Now, you're going to see these terms a lot moving forward, so make sure that you really understand this part. So first, we have the central and peripheral nervous systems. The central nervous system, or CNS, is the brain and spinal cord. So if you're looking at the nervous system as a whole, you can see that the brain and spinal cord are literally the center. Okay, so central nervous system, brain, and spinal cord. Then we have the peripheral nervous system, or the PNS, and that is literally everything else. So then the PNS, or the peripheral nervous system, is divided again into the somatic and autonomic nervous systems. Now, somatic, anytime you see somatic, I want you to think skeletal muscle, and I want you to think voluntary. So these are the things that go on in our body that we actually have control over. Then when you see autonomic, I want you to think automatic, or you can think of involuntary. So these are the unconscious things that happen in our body without us even knowing about it. Now, there's one more division after this, and this is the part that you're really going to see a lot. The autonomic nervous system is divided one more time into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So for now, here's what you need to know about these. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight or flight response. This is what helps us fight off an attack or flee away from it. So all of our senses are heightened. Our heart rate is up. Our blood pressure is up. All of our non-essential functions like digestion are slowed down. We have got to fight off a bear. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system is also known as rest and digest. So this is what slows us down a little bit. It allows us to do the things that we couldn't do when we were fighting, like digestion and reproduction. So fight or flight and rest and digest. Now, there's an entire lesson on the autonomic nervous system, so make sure that you check that out to understand this in more detail. Now, let's talk generally about the cells of the nervous system. We have neurons and we have glial cells. The neuron is the basic unit of the nervous system. If signals are being sent somewhere, it is a neuron that is involved. Now, we classify them by their function. We have afferent and we have efferent neurons. Afferent is sensory, so that means that it receives signals from the body. And efferent is motor, which means it actually sends signals out from the brain to the organs or the muscles to produce an action. So you can remember this with the mnemonic SAME, S-A-M-E, sensory, afferent, motor, efferent, okay? Now, as far as glial cells, there's actually quite a few types of glial cells, and they all have their own special role. Now, we talk about these in detail in the neuro section of the MedSurg course, and we've provided some detail in your outline here. But the big difference I want you to see is that neurons do not undergo mitosis or cell division, and glial cells do. And any cell that undergoes cell division has a risk for tumor development. Now, since the neuron is the basic unit of the nervous system, let's talk about the different parts of the neuron and the role that they play. This larger part here is called the cell body. And this is where you'll find the nucleus as well as the other major structures of the cell like mitochondria, etc. Now, these finger-like projections over here are called dendrites. This is what's going to actually receive the signal from another neuron. This long, thin part here is called the axon. And depending on what part of the body it's in, these axons can actually be up to like 2 or 2.5 feet long. Now, along the length of the axon, you're going to see what's called a myelin sheath. And the myelin sheath is formed by these cells, and these cells are called Schwann cells. Now, you only have a myelin sheath if the Schwann cell is able to wrap all the way around a single axon. If you've got one Schwann cell and multiple axons, you're not actually going to get it all the way around, so you're not going to have a myelin sheath. If it has a myelin sheath, it's going to be called myelinated. And if it doesn't have a myelin sheath, it's going to be called unmyelinated. Now, the purpose of the myelin sheath is actually to make the signal get sent faster and smoother down the length of the axon. Now, between every Schwann cell, you have what's called the node of Ranvier. And the purpose of this node is actually to allow that signal to physically jump from one node to the other. So again, not only are we getting a smoother signal, we're also getting a faster signal because it's able to jump one node to the next. So that's the purpose of the myelin sheath. Now, once the signal gets to the other end here, you're going to see what are called axon terminals. So this is the end. This is where it would connect to another neuron to be able to send a signal. So if you picture another neuron here, you can see this axon terminal is going to back up to a dendrite. It's going to send the signal across and start that signal down the next neuron. Now, in the lesson on nerve transmission, we're going to talk in detail about how this signal goes from neuron to neuron. But the main thing I want you to see here is that the signal comes down the axon and it passes to another neuron so that it can get sent farther and farther down the nervous system. Now, in the end of that axon, in the axon terminal, we have little vesicles that hold our neurotransmitters, which are the chemicals that help us send the signals. Now, again, check out the lesson on nerve transmission to see more details about that. Now, the last thing I want to review quickly is the membranes. Now, if you've already watched the muscle and bone lessons, this is all going to feel very familiar to you. So you have an individual neuron covered in endoneurium. Then you're going to have a group of those bunched together in a fascicle, and they are covered by perineurium. Then you're going to have a group of fascicles bunched together by epineurium. Now, this is just white fibrous connective tissue that holds all of these fascicles together. And sometimes you might even see tiny little blood vessels grouped in here as well. So let's recap what we've learned about the nervous system. Its main function is to receive and transmit electrochemical communication signals throughout the body in order to coordinate and integrate body functions. It's divided into the central and peripheral nervous systems, which is further divided into the somatic and autonomic nervous system, which is divided one more time into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. We have the neuron, which is the basic unit, basic cell of the nervous system, as well as some glial cells that are found in the central nervous system. And remember, at the end of the neuron is the axon terminal, and this is where all of the magic happens to send the signals to other neurons or to the target cells. Make sure you check out the nerve transmission lesson to see more details about how that happens. All right, guys, make sure you also check out any resources attached to this lesson. Now go out and be your best selves today. And as always, happy nursing.